payments journal. Now, yesterday we learned about purchases. Purchases is a journal that we use for recording merchandise that we are going to sell, and that merchandise we are buying on an account, okay? So, if I am in the business of selling Core Connections geometry textbooks, am I making the textbook? No, I'm turning around and selling it and getting it to my consumers. So I have to pay a certain amount of money to get this book. Then I go to my consumer, how much are they going to pay me? What does it need to be, at least? More, right? It has to be more than what I just paid for Caden. He makes it, I buy it, and then I get it to consumer. So if I have to pay $20 for this book, what's the minimum I should sell to him? Well, depending on what my expenses are, right? So my markup is going to be determined by what I need to do. What if I have to ship it to him? Okay, so it's going to have to charge more money. And sometimes what they do is they say free shipping, and they do what? Build the cost of shipping into the cost of the good. So that's why you can look around and determine what's going to be a better deal. So we use our purchases journal for recording of merchandise that you're going to buy on an account. We added a new account called Purchases. Purchases is a cost account, and it has a debit normal balance. So now instead of having 4 account classifications, we now have, instead of 5, now we have 6. Assets, liabilities, stockholders' equity. Now we have revenue, cost, and expense. Okay, so we have 6 classifications. Now, we think about it, our cost account really just keeps track of what items cost us to sell, because we can't determine if we have made a profit without knowing its cost. In our service business, if I went out and gave you a golf lesson, there was no cost to that to me because it's just knowledge, things that I can do. If I babysat, it didn't cost me anything. You're just paying me for my time and my skill level. So that is why the first business we always do is a service business, because it's the easiest to do. Now when we get into merchandising, that is more what businesses do every day, but it's a little bit more work to determine our profit. So now we're going to look at our cash payments journal. And again, I said we're going to have 5 journals. We learned purchases yesterday. We're learning cash payments today. Now, cash payments is only used for journalizing payments with cash. I don't know another way to say it because that's really what the journal is. Okay? So, if cash is being credited, guess what journal it goes in? Cash payments, right? Think about it. When we used our journal before, we had a cash credit column. Would you agree? And the only time you use cash credit is when you are making a payment. So now what we have is we have one journal that we're going to use just to keep a track of all of the money going out of the business. Now, we use special journals to allow us to get information easier. So at the end of the month, when I look at my purchases journal, bless you, it's going to show me how much products we got in a month. When I look at my cash payments journal, it's going to tell me how much cash I paid out a month. Is that important to know? Businesses need to keep track of that. They have to make decisions based on what is happening within their money. Now, when we look at our cash payments journal from left to right, the very first column should be very familiar. Date column, right? 1 column for the month, 1 column for the day. Bam. We know that. Now, the next column, that should look familiar too, right? Yesterday, it didn't say account title. What did it say? Account credited. Yeah. So today it says account title, just like we did before. What's next to account title? Check number. Notice it doesn't say source document. It really says check number. So that tells you the only thing that goes there is checks. And I don't even have to write C17 anymore. I would just put in 17 because all of them are going to be checks. Now, I will tell you, every month you have a bank service charge, right? That bank service charge is always journalized with an M. That's still going to go in your cash payments journal. All the rest of them will always be checks. It's the one little quirky that doesn't quite fit in there. Now, next to our check number, we have our post reference. That's where we use to get our information from our journal to our ledger. That's the same. Now, we have another column for general debit and credit. Right? That's used when we have columns that are not special. Now, how many special columns do we have in this journal? 3, right? Okay, I'm going to start with the far right one. That one should make sense for you, right? Cash credit. Every transaction that goes in this journal has to have a cash credit. Otherwise, it doesn't go in the journal. That's the whole point. Now, I have this column right here called accounts payable debit. Okay, I talked about this yesterday. Instead of me writing accounts payable Don's, accounts payable Subway, now what do I write? Subway or Don's. We have a new account under my assets called accounts receivable. We have a new account under my liabilities called accounts payable. That's it. It doesn't say accounts payable, blah, blah, blah. It just says accounts payable. That is my controlling account. It gives me a snapshot of everything I owe to my vendors. So we have this a controlling account. So we have this column here that's called accounts payable debit. So anytime I am paying on an account, it no longer goes in general. Because instead of me writing accounts payable Don's, right now I write under the account title Don's, and then it goes in the account column, accounts payable. Sound good? When we see some examples, it'll go over there. This is the most common mistake that I see in this chapter, is you will put it in your general column instead of that accounts payable column. Okay? My next column there is called purchases discount. Now, oftentimes what happens is I will have agreements with my vendors. Vendors are people that I buy from. So, for example, for the Thunder Zone, one of the vendors that we deal with is Team Apparel. They make all of our clothing items. We also deal with the people that make the cookies. Okay? So what happens is I can have an agreement with a vendor, and that we may say to that vendor that if I pay within 3 days, I get a 5% discount. So what does that mean for me? Why would I? That means I get my item for cheaper, right? Am I going to change the price I'm going to charge my customers? No, it just allows me to what? Make more money. Anyone else want to make more money? My business does. Okay? So we have to keep track of our discounts. And I want to show you how discounts are written. Discounts are written like this. Okay? So it looks like a fraction. It looks like you're trying to find for n, right? If you're thinking about math class. But when we're talking about accounting and we're talking about business, this is really our terms. Now the very first one, this is the most common one that I see. You get a 2% discount if you pay within 10 days, otherwise all of it's due in 30. Okay? Now the second one, I get a 5% discount if I pay within 7 days, otherwise all of it's due in 17 days. My third one is I get a 4% discount if I pay within 12 days, otherwise all of it's due in 20. Now, it is important that the person in charge of your books for the business is aware of these deals, because it's better for us if we pay within that discount period. Why would a business give us that? They get their money faster too, right? It kind of helps everyone out. Now, here's the thing. You will have assignments that'll tell you that you're going to pay on purchase invoice 22 within the discount period. And that's all they're going to say. What are you going to have to do? How are you going to figure it out? Where would you have to look? If you look at the actual purchase invoice, it'll say purchase invoice 17 for $250, terms 210 net 30. And then you'd have to count what day was that bill received on, what is the last day that you can pay within the discount period, and you have to pay it in there. So you have to do a little bit more math and more thought process in order to capture that discount. So what happens is if I pay within the discount period, let's say that my bill was $100 to Don's, and I pay early and I get a $5 discount. So when I journalize it, how much in my books does it say I owe Don's? Do you remember? No, in my books it says I owe them 100. So 100 would have to go here under accounts payable. Because if I only put 95 there, it's going to show me that I still owe them $5. So right here I'd put 100 because that's the amount of the original purchase invoice. My purchases discount would be 5, and how much am I paying them in cash? 95, because my 2 credits equal my debit. So this also shows me at the end of the month how many invoices I paid within the discount period in order for me to make more money on my products. Sound good? Ready to try it? Let's look at those directions. Let's rock and roll. You doing okay? Not feeling well? So we're going to use our cash payments journal for Franklin Lumber. I'm going to guide you through your following example because it's my favorite thing to do. Using the current year, journalize the transactions on page 10 of the cash payments journal. The checks are used as a source document are abbreviated as C. So we can see that page number 10 is already filled in. We're doing this for October of the current month, so I'm going to put my month in there of OCT. Transaction number 1 reads October 1st, paid cash for telephone bill, $85, C, 321. We've done this before. What is my account? Utilities expense, right? So my account title is utilities expense. My check number is 321. Where do my numbers go? General debit, cash, credit, right? 485. Straight up. This is just like we did before. October 7th, paid cash for office supplies, $52, C32. C322, excuse me. Date of the 7th. What's my account title? Supplies office, not supplies office expense. Supplies office. Check number 322. What columns does it go in? General debit, cash, credit. Now everyone stopped at 11 because they don't know what to do, right? Okay, so the 11th. Paid cash to GMT Hardware for merchandise with a list price of $800, less a 60% trade discount, C, 323. Okay. Bless you. Bless you. What did we buy? Does it say supplies or does it say merchandise? Merchandise. What does merchandise mean to us as a business? Stuff that we're going to sell. So this book, right? Okay. Do you remember when I buy stuff that I'm going to sell, what account I use? Give you a hint. There was a journal yesterday we learned about. What's the name of the journal from yesterday? Purchases. Okay, so purchases as that new account that we learned about, that's a cost account that has a debit normal balance. So anytime we buy merchandise, you hear the word merchandise, you have to think purchases. Always, always. The key word merchandise associates with purchases. Purchases has a debit normal balance. Does it matter who we bought it from? No. So am I going to list the name of that company, GMT Hardware, anywhere? No. Okay, now here's the other thing. It said a trade discount. Oh, good Lord, what is a trade discount? A trade discount is just an agreement between me and the vendor that I can get things cheaper. Anyone shop in Kohl's? Ever shop at Kohl's? Okay, at Kohl's, do they just have sales racks? that says like 20% off, 60% off, whatever? Okay, so if you're at Kohl's and you walk up to pay for that item that's on sale, it's kind of like a trade discount between you and Kohl's, and if the item is 60% off and it was $100, how much money are you going to give them? $40, right? Does it matter that it was originally $100? No, you are just going to give them $40. The same thing is going to be true with this transaction. It doesn't matter what the original price was. We just have to record it for the price that we got it at. Because we're not dealing with accounts payable here. We're paying cash on it. So I'm going to put the date of the 11th. My account title is going to be what? I said it. Purchases. Is there a special column for purchases? No. So guess what column it's got to go in? General. Okay. Now, originally my product was $800 and I got it 60% off at Kohl's. So how much am I paying for it? I'm paying 40%, but what is the amount? Okay. Now, let's talk about how we calculate that. Because now you're like, oh my gosh, I actually have to do math. So, here it is. Here's my product, $800. It's 60% off. If I multiply it by 60, is that what I pay? No, that's how much I get off. So if I take the reciprocal of my discount, so instead of typing in 60%, if I type in 40, if I take 800 times 40%, that gives me how much I have to pay. So I'm going to do 800 times 0.40, that gives me 320. Right? So 320 goes where? For sure cash credit, because otherwise it wouldn't go in this journal. Would you agree? And we already agreed purchases doesn't have a special column, so it's got to go under general, 320. You're not touching that accounts payable column at all, because it doesn't matter. You didn't buy anything on account. You're not paying anything on account. You're just paying cash for merchandise. Now, the 17th. This is where we have some fun. Everyone's getting stuck here. You actually have to wait for me to teach it. I love it. The 17th, paid cash on account to West Supply covering purchase invoice $199 for $3,420 less a 2% discount, check $324. Okay, hopefully everyone's got the date. Can we agree on that? So basically what happens, we bought merchandise on an account, now we're paying it, but we get 2% off. Who are we paying it to? West Supply, that's the only thing I type in. I no longer type in accounts payable West Supply. Check number 324. Now, because I don't type in account payable, that means I have to go in the accounts payable column. How much does it say we owe West Supply? $3,420, right? That's going to go under my accounts payable column. $3,420. We're not paying them $3,420 though. How much are we paying them? How did you get that? 2% discount. So really this time I need to know how much we have off. So in my calculator I'm going to type in $3,420 times 2%. And that gives me my discount of $68.40. That goes on my purchases discount column. So a trade discount is different than paying on an account using a discount. So now I take $68.40 and I subtract $3,420 and I get $3,351.60. Look it, you have cents. It's the first time you've had cents ever in accounting this whole year. So watch it. Oftentimes this is where things are not going to come out because you missed that there is cents. Caleb, you have something wrong on line 3. Okay, the 19th, paid cash on an account to Quill Forest Products covering purchase invoice 182 for $4,380. No discount was offered. So we have a bill for $4,300, and we're going to pay the bill for $4,380. So my account title doesn't say Accounts Payable Quill Forest. It's just going to say Quill Forest Products for check number 325. I have to put under the Accounts Payable column for $4,380. No discount, so cash credit of $4,380. This journal's a little bit harder than yesterday? Yeah. It's good stuff, though. Go ahead and try on your own.